we're going to be finding exact values of any angle. Okay, our first one will be sine of 2 pi on 3. We have a number of steps that we will do. Our first step is to locate the angle on the unit circle. So you're going to draw up your 4 quadrants. And we know that this is 0, this is pi, pi on 2, and 3 pi on 2. We know that 2 pi on 3, which is the angle we're working with, it's going to be located in the second quadrant. And I'm going to put that in there approximately and label that. Okay, and then we're going to mark in the angle in reference to the x-axis. Very important that it's with the x-axis and not the y-axis. So you're going to mark in and how much it differs from the x-axis. So this angle will then be pi on 3, because we know if we have 2 pi on 3 plus an additional pi on 3 will get us to pi. Then what you should do, you should also mark in your cast rule. The cast rule tells us which trig ratio is positive in which of the quadrants. So for example, cos, which is here, will be positive in the 4th quadrant. All of the ratios are positive in the 1st quadrant. Sine is positive in the 2nd quadrant, and tan will be positive in the 3rd quadrant. Our next step is to rewrite this, and I'll show you how to do that. So we've got sine 2 pi on 3. This is the same as sine of pi take pi on 3. Okay, now this is what we're working out. We're working out how does it differ from the x-axis, and this gives us the equivalent angle as it would be in quadrant 1. I'll just circle that there. So we know if this were happening in quadrant 1, we'd be working with pi on 3. So let's rewrite that. So that's going to be the same as sine of pi on 3. Now we know that sine is positive in the 2nd quadrant, which is where 2 pi on 3 is located. Now that we know that, we're then going to work out, using our exact value triangles, what our answer is going to be. So we're working with the pi on 3 triangle. So let's draw that up. And your exact value triangle should look like this. We've got pi on 3 here. The angle up the top here will be pi on 6. This is going to be 1, 2, and root 3. So we're working out sine of pi on 3, which is opposite over hypotenuse, which is going to be root 3 on 2. And we're finished. Okay, let's try another one. This time we're working with cos of 7 pi on 6. Okay, so our first step is to put this on the unit circle. So mark in our quadrants, and we've got, this is pi, and this is 0. Okay, so we know that 7 pi on 6 is just a little bit more than pi, because pi is equivalent to 6 pi on 6. So we're going to mark here just a little bit extra, and it's pi on 6 beyond pi. So remembering to mark in reference our angle deviated from the x-axis. So we know we're working in quadrant 3. Let's mark in our cast rule. Okay, so in this quadrant here, quadrant 3, cos will actually be negative because tan is the only one that is positive in that quadrant. So we're going to end up with a negative answer. So we're going to actually rewrite this cos 7 pi on 6. So we've got cos of 7 pi on 6 is the same as cos pi plus pi on 6. Remember, this tells us what the equivalent angle would be if we were working in the first quadrant. And this time it's telling us that we're working with pi on 6. So it's going to be cos pi on 6. And we knew, I'll just put my cast rule up here. We knew, because we were working in the third quadrant here, that cos is actually negative in that quadrant. Okay, now negative cos of pi on 6. Going to draw up, well, once again we're working with our pi on 3, pi on 6 exact value triangle. Mark this in, 1, 2 and root 3, and we can get our answer. So we're working with cos, which is adjacent over pi hypotenuse, so that'll be minus root 3 on 2 is our answer. Okay, let's try. This time we're going to be working tan 7 pi on 4. So as before, we're going to put this on our unit circle and locate which quadrant. So again, marking in our x-axis values. So we've got 0 here and pi over here. Now 7 pi on 4 is very close to 2 pi, which is the same as 0, but it's a little bit less than 2 pi. So 2 pi, when we're looking in quarters, would be 8 pi and 4. We're going to mark that in. So that's 7 pi on 4. And we know it is short of 2 pi by pi on 4. Mark in our cast rule. And we can see in this quadrant here, quadrant 4, that tan is going to be negative because cos is the only one that's positive in that axis. We're going to rewrite this. So we can say tan of 7 pi on 4 is the same as tan 2 pi less pi on 4. Remembering that this angle here tells us what the angle would be if it were in the first quadrant. So we're working with pi on 4. That's going to be tan of pi on 4. And as we worked out previously, tan is going to be negative in the fourth quadrant. This time, we're working with our pi on 4 exact value triangle, which I'll draw up for you. Our values are different. So we've got 1 and 1 on both of those sides, and then the hypotenuse will be root 2. So tan is opposite over adjacent. Opposite over adjacent. So it's going to be negative 1 on 1, which is negative 1. Okay, and that finishes finding exact values of angles of any magnitude.